Hello, everyone, and welcome to Light News Radio, Realms of Self-Empowerment. Now in our 5th year of broadcasting and bringing you topics of the mind, body, spirit, and the tools and techniques to awaken you to higher consciousness levels. I am Dr. J, your host, and I'm hoping that I will have Deirdre Layton come on with us today. She is currently, I'm just touching to welcome people on board here, Kathy and Ken. She is currently in Nanaimo looking after her mom in the hospital, and if she has time, she will definitely come on. Deirdre's an amazing person. If she can't get the internet airwaves, she'll just kind of make some of her own. So together we bring you grounded metaphysics, where the spiritual rubber hits the road, real-life teachings and applications that are pertinent and relevant to you. Here you will breathe the fresh air of real consciousness education while avoiding the hype, the glitter, and the fascination. We are all about assisting you to empower your life through understanding your true spiritual nature. So come aboard our beam of light and enlighten your load as we travel the ways of knowledge for the next hour. So, it's an amazing time, and it looks like I already have Kathy and Ken saying hello. Facebook Live has been an interesting venue for us. And we had started out years ago, actually in 2014, I want to say, June of 2014, with the Bold Radio Network, and of course it was all audio. And it was only, I think, twice a month, and we went on 4 times a month, and we went on every Wednesday. And now with these different venues, we are doing live broadcasts, but live with Facebook and with Zoom as well. So you guys all know these platforms. But the cool thing about these platforms is that not only does it allow us to come to you live, but you get the opportunity to see us in video and get to see who we are and what we look like on our facial expressions and all that stuff. So this has been a really good way to contact people. I like it better than radio itself because you get a chance to actually see and interact, and a lot of times, you know, we have guests on, or Deirdre will come on as a small window in the picture there. And we have the opportunity to interact with you in a way that is just only getting better and better and better. And just like FaceTime announced a couple months ago that you can have multiple people online, we hope to have multiple people online with whom we are interacting on our various platforms, so that we can then have a whole cornucopia of interaction going on, kind of like discussion panels, if you like. What's coming also is webinars. I am definitely doing a lot more online work, whether it's instructional videos, just me to you on certain things that I think are very applicable and very pertinent to you, and also our educational series, which will be on everything from tarot card reading to a series I'm working on called Awakening the Master Within, which is 6 online courses, and there's a whole lot more things coming down the road. Just like every time Deirdre and I get together, we come up with all these ideas, and a lot of the places we get the ideas are from you when you ask your very pertinent and relevant questions. When you're engaging with us on platforms like this, it really helps give us information and almost like fertilizer, where more ideas can grow. So today, Deirdre will be joining us. She thinks in about 15 minutes from now. And so I wanted to talk today a little bit about astral travel. And I'm hoping to get Deirdre on sooner than later so she and I can have some repartee and discuss what it is. You certainly have run across it, you know, whether you are a spiritual practitioner or just have a casual interest, certainly you've heard of this term. And the word astral is an interesting word. You know, our language is full of paradox. It's full of wording that doesn't always quite make sense. Like, for instance, the term astral dimension are 2 words that don't belong together. It's called an oxymoron, because dimension means time and space. You know, dimension can be measured. Astral is a reference to a level of being that is not related to time or space, and yet we talk about it in conjunction with dimension, the astral dimension. So this is fascinating because there's so much research going on. Not just research scientifically, but research by people who have awakened their higher sense perceptions, who do see or know or intuit into the higher dimensions beyond space and time, and the relevance of the information that they bring is just as pertinent, just as important as any kind of scientific verification. People who do past life readings, people who do intuitive readings, people who are looking at the true nature of the human being as we exist beyond space and time. So we're living in a fascinating age where, in the popular media, we see James Van Praagh, Sylvia Browne, John Edwards, the Long Island Medium. We see all of these celebrities who are on the television, on the networks now, doing this work. And, it kind of leaves a lot of people, I think, mystified and fascinated that, oh, wow, that's very interesting that that man or that woman has these abilities. And what if I told you we all have these abilities? What if I told you that all of these abilities, these intuitions, are on and that they're active in all of us? And you might say, well, gee whiz, how do I access that? Because, when I've seen these various programs, whether they were documentaries or online or on broadcast, they never really talk about how you can astral travel, how you can access these levels of being. And that's more where I come from. I'm more of the person that wants to know the how-to than the gee whiz. I like the fascination, but I also really want to know, how it works for me. So I've been teaching astral travel for some time now. And I remember we had a group in Calgary come, I think it was 42 people. And we were on a Saturday night where I would explain what astral travel is, how it works, how it creates a partial intersection with the astral dimension, which I will do today. I'll talk a little bit about that. But we also had guided imagery meditations, and that means where I would play specific types of music that was very transportive, very evocative type music, get you to feel into these higher place, and also do guided imagery speaking in terms where maybe in the first meditation we might float up above the body, then chat for a bit, and then go into another meditation where we might go up a little higher, and go into another meditation where we might go up a little higher. So there were probably 4 or 5 meditations that night where people had the opportunity. And I know Ken McDonald is listening, and some of the other wonderful people that we have that tune in regularly to Light News Radio. And we had such a great time. So, I'm going to continue to teach these and other courses because there's so many people that are so hungry for how does the metaphysics of the human being work. Not just the fascination like, wow, astral travel. How can I do that? How can I access those levels? About 2 weeks ago today, I gave my very first lecture for the Oasis group. The Oasis group is a wonderful organization that serves up all kinds of lectures and workshops for seniors, people who are 50, 60, 70, 80 years of age, who have time to explore things that they might not ever have explored. So certainly everything from finance, investing, real estate, to the type of work that I do. Well, I did a program on past lives, karma, and reincarnation, and 45 people booked this thing and showed up, and they were asking the best questions. And so my point to you is that this is an indication of where we are in this age. As my wife says, this is the age of truth revealed. This is the time when we're asking the really hard questions as to, okay, is there more than a physical existence? Is there more to it than us? So I wouldn't exactly just say more, as much as I would say integral or integrated. And one of the things to understand, before we really start getting into astral travel, is that we really do exist as a spiritual being that is not limited to space or time, and we have a physical existence, which is the one you're optically seeing and listening to right now. So this is fascinating. And one of my main teachers, Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama, was a very awakened spiritual man, but also quite the scientist. And he created devices that could help measure the existence of the spiritual energy body, that there really is individuation. Going back to James Van Praagh and Sylvia Browne and the others who contact spirits who are deceased people, but deceased, not really dead. Not really dead. Just existing on another plane in the astral dimension. So here we have, here we have Deirdre, so I'm just going to bring her on. And here we phenomena of astral travel is that it's possible for you to be sitting just like I'm now. And it's also possible to be able to go into high level. Hello, Deirdre.
Hello, Deirdre. Hi, Richard. How are you? Can you hear me fine?
I'm doing
quite
well. Now we have this echo again.
Oh, it could be my phone then because I'm in the hospital and on a really lousy Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So if it's not going to work, I will say an honor that you're doing a wonderful job.
I think before I do that, our listeners suffer through while I ask you to say a few words about astral travel, your thoughts, and your questions for me before you sign up.
Okay. Well, I have experienced astral travel a few times, but what I really enjoy about how you teach astral travel is that you guide people in the safety way.
Yeah.
You start them off on a smaller journey, and then through the course of your workshop, you lead them into deeper and deeper understanding and then take them on a real live journey. And for me, that was amazing because I do astral travel when I'm asleep, or I do astral travel when I go into a deep meditation. And so here I fly around, or feel like I'm flying, and go to different places and go to different worlds and whatnot. So my question would be, if a beginner person, somebody who has never experienced astral travel before, and were feeling that sensation of going out of body, how would you explain to them that they're safe? Because I know that many people who go on an astral journey think once they're gone, how am I going to get back? How am I going to safely get back into my own body? And so that would be a deep question for our listeners, I'm certain, because having that understanding that you are safe, it's a journey of sorts. So how would you answer that, Richard?
Well, I'm going to get that question every time I get a double. So I'd like you to continue on for a while. Write down these things. Have you participate by what? And then I will keep.
Okay, I will send you. I'll type it in the comments.
Oh.
And then you go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Dee. We still have to work out. When we do this on Zoom, it's much better, but we have to record it unless we can get you live. So Deirdre and I are. Thank you, Dee.
All right, I'll type it in here.
Okay. So I'm going to take you.
Yep.
Yeah, for some reason, when Deirdre and I go on Facebook Live, we get this double voice of mine. Not that you don't mind listening to me twice. I mean, I really like that you do, but sometimes it can be a little bit annoying. So, how do you know? How do you know that you're safe? Deirdre's question was about safety and about um, when you are astral traveling and you have a sense in your mind as it was described to you that somewhere in space and time is your body. Like here I am sitting in my office and I go into meditation and I'm able to look down and see my body seated comfortably, and yet I know that I'm not in my body. So first of all, how do you know you're astral traveling? And second of all, how do you know you're safe? There has been um, schools of meditation, of soul travel, of astral travel that would teach people how to make these journeys in the safety way. And one of the initial ways that you do this is by setting a sacred container. What do I mean by that? When you pray or when you meditate, you're in a very loving and sacred space. You know, your heart is open to the divine presence. You begin to realize that what you call God or creator is not something out there, that God is everything, everywhere. God is within you, you are within God. And so it sets a condition where this respect for this sacredness, this holiness, is entirely upfront. It's called setting a sacred container. And secondly, when you breathe in a seated position, one of the things that helps is what the Eastern philosophers call bottom full, top empty. It means you breathe all the way down below your belt line as if your lungs go all the way to your belt. And what that does is it focuses your energy below your belt line. It's a lot like picturing a pyramid. You know, a pyramid is a very stable building, very hard to tip over. But by having the bottom part of your energy below your belt full, by concentrating, it makes for you a very stable platform so that you can go out of body. That's why breathing techniques are very helpful. And one of the ways you can breathe is breathe in through the nose with your tongue at the palate of your mouth. That's like the tongue at the roof of your mouth. Mouth closed, breath in. And you can breathe out through your mouth if you want. Or if you like, you can breathe in and out through your nose. Now, one of the things Deirdre was talking about was in my workshop in how to astral travel, I take you on a guided imagery. And the entire premise of the guided imagery is always safety, setting a sacred container and traveling in a sacred way. So I might say things like, okay, now you're leaving your body, and then kind of let you float around for a while. And then I'll say things like now coming back totally into your physical body, where your astral body and your spirit, your physical body are totally conforming and matching exactly one to the other. And then, of course, some very loving, slow, deep breaths, feeling your physical presence, wiggling the fingers and the toes, assuring yourself, you know, looking around the room and breathing. And, you know, everybody's different. Some people do this for the first time and they go, nothing happened, didn't feel a thing, nothing going on. And other people, you know, they can come out of this going, oh, good Lord in heaven, what happened? And most people are someplace in between. Because, you know, for the most part, a lot of people really don't know what astral travel is other than what they've seen in the movies or maybe read about, but really haven't done it themselves. And so what is astral travel? You know, what is it exactly? Let me check and see if Deirdre has sent me anything yet. Not yet. Astral travel is the ability to leave your body with awareness and to be able to move freely, having freedom away from the limitations of the physical body. So if you're sitting right now and you're listening to this, and you see me in a visual, and you're aware that your physical body is sitting in a chair, you're aware that it's probably not floating away, But when you astral travel, there is an inner awareness of floating above the body, slightly elevated. So when a person begins to astral travel, it creates what's called a partial intersection between the astral and the physical dimension, where you're actually in both places at the same time. And if you take a giant step backwards in our broadcast today, one of the things I said is you are a spirit beyond space and time, and you have a physical body that is in space and time simultaneously. And this is more and more being completely proven as true nowadays. And I think it's an important step towards self-realization. I think as a global human society, we, for the most part, are ready to understand, to comprehend, to know that this is in fact true, that we really are these beings of light. I see. So Deirdre's putting the questions right on Facebook. Okay, sorry, I was looking for a different form of a message. Wait, I was looking for a different form of message. Oh my goodness, intuition. So when you create a partial intersection, you're there and you're not there. An example of a partial intersection would be, for instance, if you meditated on a candle flame and you're seated comfortably in your room and there is a candle in front of you, maybe 3, 4 feet in front of you, and you concentrate, and inside yourself you can visualize the flame, maybe even feel the heat and the brilliance of the flame. But when you open your eyes, the candle is still there and you're still here. And yet you're aware of both. So when a person astral travels, some common examples are if a person has a near-death experience, if they're laying on the gurney, in the emergency room, and all of a sudden they look down and they see their body in a very dispassionate way, like, oh, that looks like my body. Isn't that interesting? Oh, look at that right there. So that is a form of astral travel. Another form of astral travel was a story told by David Wilcock in a video on YouTube. I think it's called Source Field Investigations, where this young woman had broken off an engagement with this fella. Of course, he was so distraught that he went to a hypnotherapist. And when the hypnotherapist was hypnotizing him, he said, well, you're going to be able to fly to your girlfriend's place, wherever she is, and see what she's doing. It just so happened that that very night, she was composing a letter to him to get back together, to reignite the engagement. So under the hypnotherapist's guidance, this fellow left his body. He was able to astral travel to where his girlfriend was, and he was able to look over her shoulder and be able to dictate to the hypnotherapist the letter that she was writing to him. So a few days later, the physical letter from her comes to him. And it turns out that the letter that he dictated to the hypnotherapist matched almost word for word the letter that she had written that night when he astral traveled to her. That's incredibly compelling. There's another story where there was a room created that was absolutely dark, no light could enter, and in the center of the room was a table set up with a complex Chinese character on it, but no light in the room, so it was not possible to see. And so this individual, at some distance away from this room, went to astral travel and to go see what this character was by recreating it, which they did. Interestingly enough, this room also had scientific measuring equipment in it, and it turns out that physical light appeared in this room when there was no light source. So photons, little individual units of light, showed up in this room where there was no light. And so the scientific community is baffled by this. The esoteric and metaphysical community says, well, of course, yes, that's exactly what happens. And so one of the things that you'll hear me say quite often is our intuitive abilities are on 24/7. They might not be cultivated, just like you have muscles in your body. And you might not be going to the gym to cultivate those muscles, but your muscles are working still. So when you begin to astral travel, you know, some of that can be unfamiliar with you. Like, have you ever done lunges for the first day and then what you were like the next day, right? So it's the same thing with astral travel. It might be a little bit unfamiliar, but there's all kinds of stories out there where people have astral traveled to different places with no problem. I was in a flower reading one time, and the premise of a flower reading, which are very popular, by the way, is where typically people will come and gather, say maybe 10 people come to where I'm going to be, and each one of them brings a flower. And they put the flower on the table, and then I sit down, meaning I have no idea who brought which flower. So anonymity plays a very big part in this, because the idea of a flower reading is to teach faith. You know, that when I sit down and I don't know who I'm reading for, and I feel the essence on this flower of the constitution of the person, I still don't know who I'm reading for. But it's to prove that the intuition is real through faith. So it's to prove that we all have intuition. Anyway, so I'm reading this one flower. And I told this person that in a past lifetime, they were a shaman who lived in South America, and that above the tree line of the Andes Mountains was this little woody bush that grew with little tiny flowers about the size of my nail here, and they were little pink flowers. Now, I've not been to South America. I've been as far as Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica. That's as far as I've gone. But I accurately saw this little flower. So at the end of the evening, people can reveal which flower was theirs or not. And so when we were talking about this one flower, there happened to be a man. It wasn't his flower, but this man was raised in South America. And he knew that above the Andes there was this bush, because he said as children they used to play with this little woody bush. And so how would I know that unless I was able to travel there clearly and see this bush and then talk about its relevance to this woman who was a past life shaman and her shamanic practice, right? So this is very compelling because it helps you to understand that we all can astral travel. But you might say, well, you know, why would I want to do that? Because it elevates your consciousness to the unity of all things, to the connectedness of all things. It helps to break down limiting belief systems. It helps to break down barriers where you might think you're separate from everything else. And really, there is no separation. We are not separate from anything. And my amazing daughter, Kim, who had a wonderful dinner last night, she's online with us now. So, hi, Kimmy, love you. So the premise of astral travel is not just, oh, I can go here or I can go there with no trouble. I can leave my body. You know, sometimes when we leave our body, we leave traumas behind. Things that happened in our physical bodies that we're very connected to emotionally. And when you leave your body, it gives you an entirely different perspective of who you are, what you represent, even what your very lifetime is about. It helps you to realize that there's more to you than just a single lifetime. That, as Buddha said, we're a lot like the little flames on a candle, and my wonderful sister is watching. We're a lot like flames on a candle. You know, Buddha said, you know, the flame will burn the candle down, but the flame is just transferred to another candle. That burns down, but the flame always exists. The flame is eternal. And so astral travel can benefit you in that it takes you beyond the material, intellectual, mental mind into a higher state of being where you go into what's called realization. Realization is a word that is a leap beyond wisdom. It is a leap beyond academic or intellectual understanding through states of higher levels of awareness. Awareness is when I see a plant growing in the Andes Mountains. Awareness is when that person saw the Chinese character in the shielded room. Awareness is when that man was able to fly through the walls to his girlfriend, his fiance's place of residence, and read the letter she was composing that very night. Those are higher states of awareness, which we all have, which we all have. It may not be cultivated, but when a person engages consciously in astral travel, there can be a big difference between what you observe and experience versus what you expect. what you anticipate, because the conscious mind loves to project, oh, you know, when I astral travel, it will look like this. And that's not necessarily true. It might appear to you completely differently than you suspect. So it serves you to have an open mind. It serves you to astral travel with someone who actually has astral traveled. Like if you're going to fly an airplane, it's always a good idea to fly with a pilot who actually has experience of flying the plane. Just like if you take yoga practice, you know, take yoga from a qualified instructor who knows what they're doing. So you learn in what my teacher used to call the safety way, you know, one step at a time. So when you are astral traveling, you are creating a partial intersection with the astral dimension that is beyond space and time, and literally, you are now consciously aware of being in two places at the same time. You look down and you see your physical body seated in a room, but you're off somewhere else. So, you know, a lot of people think, okay, I'm flying over the contours of Earth. You know, I'm flying over the mountains, the trees, the clouds, the rain, the oceans, the deserts, and that is true, but there's more. But wait, there's more. It's not limited to Earth. It's not limited to Earth. I know a lot of people say, oh, that's very fascinating, but how would I know that? Well, maybe you haven't experienced it yet. And yet my very teacher, Dr. Motoyama, he talked about how he's been to the sun and back. And you know, some of you who are jokers, you'll say, well, I hope he took 2 million sunblock with him so he could go to the sun. But one time he told me that he could travel, or he did travel across the galaxy. To give an idea of the size, light travels at 300,000 kilometers per second. That's 186,000 miles every second. And so the sun is 93 million miles from Earth, and it takes 8 minutes for the sun's light to get to Earth. So when you see a sunset, it set 8 minutes ago at 93 million miles. And yet a light year is 10 trillion kilometers, or 6 trillion miles. That means light traveling for a year is 6 trillion miles. Trillion, that's 1,000 billions. And how big is the galaxy? 100,000 light years across. 100,000 light years. That's 100,000 times 6 trillion. Unimaginable number. We can't even conceive it. But my teacher said, yeah, you know, I traveled across the galaxy. It took me about an hour. Had he been any other person, I would have said, yeah, oh, sure, of course you did. But what I'm saying to you is distance is no factor. The great spiritual teachers tell us that there is no time or space, but yet in these physical bodies, we are inured in time and space, and therefore we believe that it's in fact true that time and space are absolutes, and that the theory of relativity is you know, really nice, but actually we are limited to time or space. But think of it more as we are projections into this dimension, a lot like the movie projector shines the light on the screen. You know, the screen is not the actors, the menu's not the meal, that kind of thing. And so in astral travel, the distance is really no factor whatsoever. It's no factor. But neither is size. Neither is size. The Dogon tribe of Mali and Africa are descendants from the Atlantean people. And they have depictions of the orbital path of an electron. When you see me reach forward, it's because on the screen people are joining into the FaceTime Live. So thank you for that. But they had actually depicted accurately the orbital path of an electron. How did they do that? Well, they would answer, well, we just went there. The Aborigines of Australia have maps, contour maps of the land. And when cartographers would ask them, how did you draw these maps? They said, well, we just went up and looked down. But the cartographers argued that these maps could only be made from the air. They couldn't be made possibly from the ground. So if you're an accomplished scientist and an Aboriginal man or woman tells you, well, you know, we just went up there and looked down and wrote what we saw, what would you say? Of course you'd be incredulous. The Dogon had depictions of Sirius, the brightest star in our northern hemisphere, but also two dwarf stars that orbit Sirius called Sirius B and C. How do they know that? They're not visible by the naked eye because they're dwarf stars. It's not possible to see them with the naked eye. And yet our science, our astronomers, discovered Sirius B in 1968, I think, and Sirius C sometime in the 70s. And so when astronomers would go and talk to the Dogon in Mali, and said, "How do you know this?" "Oh, we just went there. We just went there." So are you starting to get the hint that ancient cultures cultivated their higher sense perceptions, cultivated higher states of awareness? They were aware of astral spirits. They were aware of nature spirits. They were aware of the intricate, harmonious synchronicity of our universe and how all things are connected, no matter the distance. So astral travel, not limited to distance. Astral travel is not limited to size, no matter how big or how small. Astral travel is not even limited to when. It's possible to astral travel into the past and into the future. And I know for some people listening to this, they go, "Oh, I definitely want to go see the future." Well, very evolved people, very evolved men and women have said that worrying about the future is like fishing in a dry gulch. It's better for you to concern yourself on the power that you are exerting right now in this single breath than in what is to come or what is past, because this is the moment where your power is. So this is why I started to teach more and more about astral travel. And, we will do some more workshops. I should say that my website is lightnews.org, lightnews.org, lightnews.org. And that we have many regular classes in energy healing and energy psychology, that we start new classes twice a year, and this is a 2-year program. But we also have shorter classes, we have online webinars, we have lectures, books, CDs, quite a bit of offering that just seems to be getting bigger and bigger as people are more and more interested in this type of work. But if you're going to do some astral traveling, then create a safe container for yourself, and perhaps have a little timer. These days, if you have an Android or an iPhone, you can go and get a free app that is like a little meditation timer. And so if you decide to astral travel, then if you're on your own, maybe have some music, breathe down below your belt line, create that sacred container, and put a timer on for 5 or 10 minutes. And let it play something very sweet, or just like maybe a Tibetan bell or something like that, that indicates to you it's time to be fully and completely back in your body. In order to do it well, personally, I recommend that you go take an astral travel workshop or be with somebody who can gently and lovingly guide you in and out, because you're going to have a lot of questions. Now, I know a lot of people that listen to Light News Radio are already studying metaphysics or studying the mind-body-spirit relationship. They already know a lot about chakras and subtle energy research, but there's a lot of people that don't. So always, whenever you approach anything new, especially in the realm of esoterics and metaphysics, always do so in the safety way, one step at a time. I'm just looking to see if maybe Deirdre had some more things to say. So let me ask you, we have several people online right now, so if you have any questions, now is the time to post them, and I will address them. As I said, we have a lot of things on the go at lightnews.org. These shows, by the way, I should tell you, are all archived on YouTube, on Light News Institute YouTube. And so you can always find us online at lightnews.org and ask us to point you in the right direction for what you're looking for. We're also a resource. We are a knowledge resource. So if you have questions, if you want to study, something about energy psychology, energy medicine, metaphysics, mind, body, spirit relationship, we can also be a resource to you to point you in the right direction in a way that we think is going to help you the most. Because the premise of what I do is always about self-empowerment, helping you to be a stable platform for your own spiritual growth, but also to help take some of the mystery out of metaphysics. You know, mystery is important because the faith is what helps our reach extend beyond our grasp, but also taking some of the mystery out of it is also important. So we realize that, you know, we're all connected. Everyone is. There's no one that's not. It's just that we have different paths. You know, some people don't study metaphysics at all in a lifetime, and that's not a bad thing. It's not good or bad. It's just we are all seekers in a different way, but we all live in the oneness just the same. So I just want to see, yeah, we have scientific basis to astral travel. Where can you learn more? What are the benefits? I think I've covered pretty much everything there is to cover. And you know, it becomes very enticing because when you start down the path of your own spirituality, you start to discover more and more about yourself. You discover your fears. You discover how to dissolve and dissipate your fears. You discover more of a laser-like focus of, you know, what your path is, you know, what you came here to do and what you came to learn. You discover more about your interrelationships with others, you know, how you relate to this person or your familial relationships, social relationships, intimate relationships, parental relationships, and so forth. And it gives you a much better perspective of you. You go into what the metaphysical teachers call self-awareness or self-assessment. You start to know more and more who you are and what you're about. So in that regard, then, you're living your life more purposefully, more fully, more completely. You have a sense more of relevance. And for us human beings, I think one of the things we dwell on, especially as we get later and later years in our life, is we kind of like to know, what did I do that was relevant or pertinent? You know, what contributions did I make? Okay. So this is where you can have a very safe feeling in your heart that as you are remaining authentic, as you are empowering yourself, as you're remaining true and virtuous to yourself, that is how you're contributing to the global human society. Because as we continue to grow within ourselves authentically, not manipulating others, being harmless and compassionate. You know, in my way of putting things, 95% of all communication is not verbal or physical, it's energy. So if 95% of you is just simply vibration and energy, and you continue to improve yourself in a spiritual way, a spiritual awakening, an awareness, remember, realization, that affects the constellation of everybody around you, even if you don't think so. You'd be amazed at how one simple little kindness here can make its way around and back to you maybe months later, and you forget completely about it. If somebody comes back and says, well, you know, you did that nice thing for me, so I'm going to give you an assignment. Tomorrow, I want you to find two people, and for each person, tell them one thing you really like about it, like about them. Let me give you an example. We have a dear person in north of Calgary in a little suburb called Airdrie, and his name is Ken. And one thing I really like about you, Ken, is you share all of your knowledge. When you learn something, you share it with your community freely and fully. And I really like that about you because people see you as such a generous soul that it causes them to say, well, gee whiz, you know, maybe I could be generous too. So I really like that about you. Now, what did that cost me to do? Nothing, but it was a kindness. It was a loving act, and 95% of that was not even verbal or physical. It's energy on a much higher level. And Andrea is with us too. So this is great. And by the way, these shows are recorded. They are available on YouTube. Our website is lightnews.org. And if you're watching this before February 23rd and 24th, of 2019, we have a new integrative chakra therapy workshop starting in Calgary. We have a new workshop, excuse me, a course starting, and it's an introductory weekend. And in March 9th and 10th in Encinitas, which is San Diego County, we have the same integrative chakra therapy, or ICT, introductory weekend starting March 9th and 10th in Encinitas, San Diego, California. And we start our classes twice a year in Calgary and San Diego, and numerous other workshops and offerings that are available to you. And I guess finally, I just wanted to mention what we call Dr. J's Cosmic Circle, which is a membership program that as you join the program, you get discounts on all future offerings, or should I say special future offerings that we have for having joined the circle. It's an inducement to be a part of our group, and it avails you also. I've recorded many meditations over the years, probably well over 100 recordings, and you have access to the meditations and other things that we offer as well. It's a life of service. It's a life of service to you, my dear friends. This is what we do, and this is what we're here to help with the self-empowerment of the whole human being, and to take a little bit of the mystery out of metaphysics. So I think at that point, we've pretty well covered astral travel. I don't see any questions coming in, so I think I might just wrap up today's show. I'm just checking for anything else that I might have missed, so if you'll forgive me for making sure, because sometimes, you know, when you're doing a monologue, it's easy to forget. I shot 22 half-hour programs on television called Metaphysics 101. This was in the 1990s, where they had the actual original hot lights in the stage, and it really was hot like you think. And imagine talking for 22 minutes into a camera non-stop with no script. That was really something. It's really interesting. And, you know, I should probably air some of those programs, because you'd see me what I looked like 20 years ago. And compared to now, and some of the things I'm talking about, maybe just good for laugh benefit, I suppose. Oh, free energy work, first and third Mondays in San Diego, and second and fourth Mondays in Calgary. And I'm going to be switching locations in San Diego to North County, and that will be happening. So again, you can go onto the website, go onto lightnews.org, and you are, hey Lori, so nice to see you. I've been thinking about you. But you can go on to our website, and it has all this information, all of the free healing. We continue to offer free healing clinics, even at California Institute for Human Science this last Wednesday. Once a month, they have a community healing where they have all kinds of modalities, not just mine, but several healers. And I think this is the middle of every month on Wednesdays. And you can go on to their website, cihs.edu, and look at their calendar of events too. Why? Because I'm lead faculty there, and I'm the chair of the board of directors. So I do have a little bit of what's going on at CIHS. So anyway, I want to thank you everybody for listening. You know, please do go to our calendar. Please share these programs so that we can get more widely known. And of course, thank you for listening to Light News Radio, Realms of Self-Empowerment. We hope you all are well. I want to thank my amazing assistant, Deirdre Layton, who always goes way over and above the call of duty, as it's said. And of course, as always, may the principles of harmlessness and compassion be the ever constant, ever present guide of your every intention, of your every thought, and of your every action. And so it is, and so it shall be. It is done. Stay attuned, everyone. Thank you, and blessings.